The first snowfall of the season always brought a special kind of magic to the little town of Wintervale. Children burst from their homes, their boots crunching against the fresh powder, and their laughter rang out like music on the frosty air. Snowflakes danced on the wind, glittering like tiny diamonds in the pale sunlight. Among the most excited of the children was a boy named Theo, a spirited 8-year-old with a mop of unruly brown hair and a knack for finding adventure. This year, Theo had big plans. He had told anyone who would listen. His friends, his parents, even old Mrs. Crenshaw, who ran the general store, that he was going to build the greatest snowman Wintervale had ever seen. "It'll be taller than me," he declared proudly, stretching his arms as wide as they would go. "Maybe even taller than Dad." His best friend, Emma, giggled. "I don't think your dad's going to be worried about a snowman beating him in a height contest, Theo." Theo grinned, undeterred. "You'll see. It's going to be amazing." As soon as the snow was deep enough, Theo grabbed his red scarf, his woolen gloves, and his trusty old sled. He called to Emma, who lived 2 doors down, and the two of them hurried to the clearing at the edge of town. It was their favorite spot. A wide, open field bordered by a line of tall pines, their branches heavy with snow. They weren't alone. Other kids from the neighborhood had gathered too, each working on their own snowy creations. Some built forts, others crafted small, lopsided snowmen, but these eyes were fixed on the perfect patch of untouched snow at the center of the field. "This is it," he said, planting his sled into the ground like a flag. "Our masterpiece begins here." Emma knelt beside him, packing a handful of snow into a tight ball. "What's the plan, Captain?" she asked playfully. Theo tapped his chin as if deep in thought. "First, we make the base. It has to be huge. Then, the middle part, and then the head. But it's not just going to be big. It's going to have personality. A real snowman." "Got it," Emma said. "Let's get to work." For hours, the two of them rolled snow across the clearing, their mittens growing damp and their cheeks rosy from the cold. The base of the snowman grew larger and larger until it was nearly as tall as Theo himself. They heaved and hoisted the middle section into place, grunting with the effort. Finally, they shaped the head, rounding it carefully before setting it on top. Theo stepped back, wiping his forehead with the back of his glove. "It's missing something," he said, frowning. "Like a face," Emma suggested. "Exactly." They searched the field and the edge of the woods for materials. Emma found 2 smooth black stones for the eyes, while Theo unearthed a carrot from his sled for the nose. For the mouth, they used small twigs, arranging them in a cheerful grin. Theo draped his own scarf around the snowman's neck and added his old knit cap for good measure. When they were done, they stood back to admire their work. The snowman towered above them, its features full of charm and character. "He's perfect," Emma said. "Almost," Theo replied. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, shiny button. It was an odd thing, given to him by his grandmother last Christmas. She had said it was special, though she hadn't explained why. "What's that?" Emma asked. "A finishing touch," Theo said, fastening the button to the snowman's chest like a badge. As soon as the button was in place, something extraordinary happened. A faint shimmer ran through the snowman, like sunlight glinting off ice. The air seemed to hum with energy, and for a moment, Theo and Emma felt as if the entire world had paused to watch. Then, just as quickly as it had started, the feeling faded. "That was weird," Emma said, glancing around. Theo shrugged. "Maybe it's just the cold getting to us." They didn't notice the way the snowman's grin seemed to shift slightly, or the way its button glimmered faintly in the fading light. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the field in shades of blue and silver, Theo and Emma packed up their things. "We should head home," Emma said, shivering. It's getting late. Theo nodded, though he found it hard to tear his eyes away from their creation. See you tomorrow, Frost, he said softly, patting the snowman's arm. Frost, Emma echoed. Yeah, it's his name. Frost the snowman. Emma laughed. All right, Frost. See you tomorrow. They trudged back to the village, leaving the field silent and still under the stars. But Frost was not as alone as he seemed. As the moon rose high in the sky, its light caught on the shiny button pinned to his chest. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Frost's twig arm twitched. His coal eyes blinked once, twice, as if waking from a long slumber. Then, with a soft creak, Frost the snowman came to life. At first, he simply stood there, adjusting to the strange sensation of awareness. He tilted his head, observing the field around him. The snow sparkled like diamonds, and the pine trees whispered secrets to the wind. Frost took a cautious step forward, his large body moving with surprising grace. He marveled at the crunch of snow beneath his feet, the cold air against his face. Everything felt new and wondrous. He wandered the field, exploring his surroundings. Though the night was silent, he didn't feel alone. The button on his chest pulsed faintly, filling him with warmth and purpose. As he neared the edge of the woods, Frost paused. A faint sound reached his ears, soft and melodic, like the chiming of bells. Curious, he followed the sound deeper into the forest. The trees closed in around him, their branches heavy with snow. The bells grew louder, clearer, until Frost emerged into a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a figure unlike any he had ever seen. It was a deer, but not an ordinary one. Its coat shimmered like frost on a windowpane, and its antlers sparkled with tiny icicles. Around its neck hung a string of silver bells, which jingled softly as it moved. The deer regarded Frost with intelligent, otherworldly eyes. "Who are you?" Frost asked, his voice a low, rumbling echo. "I am Glimmer," the deer replied, its voice clear and melodic. "A guardian of the winter woods." Frost tilted his head. "Am I in your woods?" Glimmer nodded. "Yes, but you are welcome here. You are unique, Frost. Not many snowmen walk the earth, let alone speak." Frost touched the button on his chest. "I think this has something to do with it. The boy who made me gave it to me." Glimmer stepped closer, its breath visible in the cold air. "That button is no ordinary trinket. It holds a magic older than time itself. It has brought you to life, but it also carries a responsibility." "A responsibility," Frost echoed. Glimmer nodded. "The button chose you for a reason. There is much you must learn, but for now, you should return to the boy who created you. Your journey begins with him." Frost didn't fully understand, but he felt the truth of Glimmer's words. With a bow of gratitude, he turned and began making his way back toward the field. The stars twinkled overhead as Frost retraced his steps, his mind buzzing with questions. Who had he been before? What did the button mean? And what kind of journey lay ahead? As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Frost arrived at the field where he had been made. He stood still, watching as the village woke to another snowy day. His journey was just beginning. As Frost stood there, watching the children run off to find their parents, he felt something stir within him. A warmth he had never known before. His snow body, once cold and still, seemed to hum with life. The button on his chest sparkled in the moonlight, the magic growing stronger with each passing moment. He turned his gaze to the soft twinkling of the stars above, his mind buzzing with thoughts of what to do next. But what was he supposed to do now? He was alive. Alive in a way he never imagined he could be. The feeling of the wind against his face, the weight of his body standing tall in the snow. It was all so new and overwhelming. But there was one thing Frost knew for sure. He couldn't go back to simply being a snowman, static and silent. He wanted to experience the world, to feel the joy and warmth that the children had shown him. That's when he remembered the button. The magical button that had brought him to life. What else could it do? Was it tied to his heart's desires, his thoughts, or was it simply the key to his existence? His fingers brushed lightly against the shiny surface of the button, and as if in answer, the cold evening air swirled around him. The snow beneath his feet seemed to sparkle brighter, as if the world itself was waiting for him to make a choice. But Frost still wasn't sure what he should do. He looked down at the children's footprints, imprinted in the snow. They had been kind to him. They had believed in him, treated him like a friend rather than just a pile of snow. In the way they smiled and laughed, he saw something that made his heart swell, something that he knew he wanted to protect. The wind picked up, swirling snowflakes around him. Frost felt a sudden urge to move, to walk, to explore the world that had always been just out of his reach. The magic of the button seemed to respond to his wish, and he felt his legs begin to shift, bend, and take his first step. He was walking! It was awkward at first, his snow legs stiff and unsure, but the more he moved, the more confident he became. He took another step, then another, his snow feet crunching softly against the ground. He walked toward the nearby woods, his eyes alight with wonder. It was magical, this new life. The world that had once seemed so distant and unreachable was now within his grasp. His heart, though made of snow, felt as if it could burst with joy. The forest, dark and quiet under the winter sky, seemed to welcome him. Frost took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp winter air, feeling a deep connection with the world around him. The trees, heavy with snow, whispered in the breeze. The moonlight shone down like a silver blanket, making the world feel like a dream. Frost looked around in awe. He had never seen the world like this before. Every snowflake felt unique and special, each tree a living piece of art. Frost couldn't help but feel as if he were part of something greater, something magical. He wondered what the world had in store for him now that he had a life of his own. But as he wandered deeper into the forest, a sense of uncertainty began to creep in. There were dangers in the woods, and Frost was not sure what they might be. He had heard stories of wolves howling at the moon, of icy winds that could freeze you to the bone. Frost wasn't afraid, but he knew that he would need to be careful. Suddenly, a soft rustle broke the silence. Frost froze in place, his heart racing. Was it the wind, or something more? His eyes scanned the darkened forest, and then he saw it. A pair of glowing eyes peering out from behind a tree. Frost's breath hitched. He hadn't expected to encounter anyone, or anything, in the woods. His legs tensed, ready to run, but then the figure stepped forward into the moonlight. It was a fox. The small, sleek creature looked up at Frost, its golden eyes sparkling in the dark. Frost blinked in surprise, relieved but still unsure. The fox's fur was thick and soft, blending with the winter landscape. It gave Frost a curious look, tilting its head as if to say, "What are you doing here?" The two of them stood there, locked in a quiet stare for a moment. Frost smiled, unsure if the fox would understand. "Hello," Frost said softly, his voice surprisingly warm for someone made of snow. "I'm Frost." The fox's ears twitched, and it took a cautious step closer. "Frost," the fox repeated in a soft voice that sounded almost like a whisper. "A snowman. You can speak." Frost nodded, feeling a little silly but happy to be able to communicate. "I can now, it seems. A magical button gave me life." The fox's eyes widened in interest. "A magical button, you say? That's rare indeed. What will you do with it?" Frost thought for a moment. "I'm not sure yet. I just know that I don't want to be alone anymore. I want to explore, to live, to understand this world." The fox sat down on the snow, its fluffy tail curling around its paws. "You're not alone, Frost. There's a world of creatures here, all with their own stories. But beware. The forest is not always kind to those who wander too far from home. Frost nodded, appreciating the fox's words. I'll be careful, he promised. The fox looked up at the stars, its gaze thoughtful. Perhaps the button has more power than you know. If you wish to help others, to truly live, it will guide you. But remember, the forest has its own magic, and it does not always reveal its secrets easily. Frost listened carefully to the fox's words. Thank you, he said sincerely. I think I'm ready for whatever comes next. But first, I must find the children who believed in me. They're my friends. I want to show them the magic of the world. The fox smiled and nodded. Then go, Frost. Find them. And remember, the magic you seek is not just in the button. It's in your heart. With that, Frost turned and began to make his way back toward the village. The forest behind him seemed to breathe, the snow glistening underfoot. Frost was no longer just a snowman. He was part of a world full of wonder, adventure, and magic. And with his newfound courage, he was ready for anything. Frost walked through the quiet snow-covered paths, his heart full of wonder and anticipation. The world had transformed around him, each step revealing something new, something magical. His journey wasn't just one of exploration. It was a journey of discovery, not just of the world but of himself. As he approached the village once more, Frost's breath created tiny clouds in the frosty air. The streets were peaceful, lit softly by glowing lanterns, and the warm twinkle of Christmas lights draped across houses. Children's laughter echoed through the streets, filling the cold night with joy. It was a beautiful sight, one that filled Frost with a sense of hope and purpose. He thought back to the children who had believed in him, the ones who had brought him to life with their simple, heartfelt wishes. They had shown him kindness and friendship, filling a void in his snowy existence. They had been his first glimpse of what it meant to truly live. The village was quieter now, but the magic of Christmas still lingered in the air. Frost could feel it, the warmth of the season, the sense of unity and giving that surrounded him. He was no longer just a creation of snow. He was something more, part of something larger than himself. His thoughts drifted back to the fox's words. The magic you seek is not just in the button. It's in your heart. It had resonated deeply within him. Frost realized that the magic of his existence wasn't bound solely to the button. It was the love and kindness he carried within, the connections he made, and the difference he could make in others' lives. As he walked through the village, a sense of peace washed over him. He understood now that his purpose wasn't just about existing. It was about making the world brighter, one moment at a time. He wanted to spread the magic of Christmas, just as the children had spread it to him. Frost's thoughts were interrupted by a gentle voice calling out from a familiar place. Frost! Is that really you? He turned to see a familiar face, the little girl who had first embraced him with joy. Her eyes sparkled in the soft glow of the lanterns, her small hands clasped tightly together as if she couldn't believe her eyes. Yes, it's me, Frost said with a joyful laugh, his voice crisp and clear. It's really me. The girl ran toward him, her laughter echoing in the air. She threw her arms around Frost's snowy body, hugging him tightly. Oh, we missed you so much. You've come back. Frost felt a warmth surge through him, a warmth he hadn't experienced before. It wasn't just physical. It was a deep, emotional connection that filled his entire being. He wrapped his arms gently around the child, his snow body melting just a little from the sheer joy of the moment. I couldn't stay away, he whispered. You all brought me to life. How could I not come back? The girl pulled back slightly, her hands resting on Frost's chest. We've been thinking about you every day. We've told everyone in the village about you. How you danced in the snow and brought so much magic. Frost smiled. his button glowing brighter in response to her words. Then it's true what they say. When you share magic, it grows. The girl nodded enthusiastically. That's exactly right. And we've all been hoping you'd return to help spread the Christmas spirit even more. Frost looked around, noticing the people gathering on the streets. Families, neighbors, friends, they all shared the same warmth and happiness. He could feel their connection, their unity, and it felt like the perfect Christmas night. Suddenly, the village bell rang out, clear and joyous, announcing that the Christmas Eve celebration was beginning. Frost's heart swelled with emotion. He had come full circle, from a simple snowman to something more, something alive, something magical. "A Frost!" called another voice, a boy with wide eyes and a grin that stretched from ear to ear. "We were hoping you'd come. It isn't Christmas without you." Frost's laughter echoed through the village. "Well, it wouldn't be Christmas without all of you either." The village gathered around him, their faces lit with warmth and cheer. They shared stories, sang carols, and exchanged gifts under the starlit sky. And through it all, Frost remained at the heart of it, a beacon of the magic of Christmas, a symbol of hope and unity. As the evening deepened and the stars shone brighter, Frost looked up to the sky once more. He thought of the magical button on his chest, the one that had given him life, but also of the countless moments of kindness, laughter, and love that had made him truly alive. "Thank you," Frost whispered to the stars. "Thank you for showing me the magic of living." And with that, the village celebrated long into the night, their hearts filled with the warmth of Christmas, a warmth that Frost had the honor of carrying with him wherever he went.